That I was in that situation, especially in front of my child.
It's more than a car. I mean, it's a way to buy food, a way to get her daughter around, a literal lifeline, and hers was taken away.
Mommy, why is that man taking our car away?
Why car repossessions will start happening more and more as this COVID economy slinks on and debts continue to pile up. 3 ways you can protect yourself.
It would really hurt me to know that other people are struggling as much as I have.
How Portland's homeless account for so many arrests despite being just a fraction of the population. And why truth in advertising
I'm Janie Herrera Butler. I'm Carolyn Long.
doesn't apply to politics.
And I approve this message.
Here's the story.
And I'm Dan Haggerty. Welcome to The Story. Glad to have you with us tonight. We're going to be checking messages throughout the show. You can email me at thestory@kgw.com. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram or use Twitter and the hashtag HeyDan. We're going to read some comments and questions at the end of the show. Now, I want to start the show tonight by talking about our bills. You know, your rent and your mortgage, things like that. And we may not talk about it every day here on the show, but I'm willing that you and your family probably do. Maybe now more than ever, because right now in Oregon, there are moratoriums on rent and on foreclosures because of the coronavirus pandemic. And while I'm sure that is very, very helpful, rent and a mortgage, those aren't the only bills that we have to pay. And to many Oregonians, one bill in particular is just as important as the rent, the car payment. Except, so far there's no moratorium on that one, which brings us to our big story. The possible surge in car repossessions we could see thanks to the pandemic. Of course, losing a car means more than just losing, your ability to get around. In many cases, it means losing your ability to actually get to work and make money to pay for the car. Now, sometimes it happens the other way around. In the case of a single mom that Kyla Boshi talked to, see, she lost the job, then lost the car. But here's how she went about getting it back and why more people might have to do the same pretty soon.
3, 2, 1, go.
As a single mom, Sabina Erdez does it all. She's the one who pays the bills, figures out what's for dinner, and drives her 6-year-old daughter Zaya
Are you buckled in?
from here to there, then back home again. No question, it's a busy life. It became even more difficult in August when Sabina's car got repossessed.
We were both very confused about what was going on, and she asked me, Mommy, why is that man taking our car away?
Sabina had purchased her 2015 Mazda hatchback 2 years ago. It was a proud moment. She had a stable income as a writer and planned to make reasonable monthly payments for the used car. But then came the unexpected.
I was laid off from my job, and then with the pandemic, it's been hard to find work or stable work. And then with school being out and me being the primary caregiver, I'm a single mom, it made it even more challenging to be able to find any kind of work.
Yeah. Sabina joined tens of thousands of out-of-work Oregonians waiting for unemployment benefits. She contacted her creditors, including Chase Bank, which agreed to temporarily defer car payments. But that grace period only lasted so long.
When you have less money than all the bills that you owe, where do you send the money?
Sabina said she'd fallen behind on car payments for 2 months when a tow truck showed up at her Southeast Portland home. No one had warned she and her daughter would be losing their one and only car.
It felt very humiliating. I felt embarrassed that I was in that situation, especially in front of my child.
A spokesperson said Chase made repeated attempts to contact the customer, adding, since COVID, it has granted more than 300,000 payment deferrals to struggling customers. Chase stopped all repossessions in March, but resumed in July. Sabina said Chase demanded she pay off the entire loan to get the car back, more than $10,000. It's money she clearly didn't have. Frustrated, Sabina shared her story on social media and organized rallies outside of Chase Bank.
I wanted them to see faces of people who are impacted by what they do and to what degree we are impacted.
Sabina, a community volunteer and chair of the Lentz Neighborhood Association, also sent a letter to Oregon Governor Kate Brown urging her to impose restrictions on repossessions during the COVID outbreak, like what other states have done.
There have been a variety of efforts across the board, but obviously it hasn't been enough.
John Van Alst of the National Consumer Law Center suggests car repossessions will surge in the coming months as hardship protections peter out and more consumers fall behind on car payments. due to the economic turmoil and unemployment brought on by the coronavirus.
We've certainly seen an uptick in terms of defaults and delinquencies, but I think that's going to translate into a really large increase in repossessions.
With so many people struggling to make car payments, what can you do? Well, first, contact your lender. Many banks and auto financing companies are still letting people delay or renegotiate payments. See if you can refinance your loan to make that car payment more doable. Most importantly, don't do nothing. Even if you miss just one car payment, it's really important to contact your lender. Sabina was able to get her car back after a community member stepped forward to provide an interest-free loan. But even that process wasn't easy. She had to coordinate a ride to Seattle to pick it up at a car auction.
I know this has been a very painful experience for me. It would really hurt me to know that other people are struggling as much as I have.
Sabina hopes that lenders will show greater leniency and realize this isn't just a car. For a single mother like her, it's a lifeline, critical to finding work, getting groceries, and keeping her daughter safe, especially during a pandemic.
Okay, Kyle Aboshi joining us now. So, Kyle, as far as the calendar is concerned, when are we going to start seeing this uptick in repossessions?
Yeah, I talked to a number of experts and analysts in the industry, and they all generally agree we will see a surge in repossessions. The question is when. They say there's a variety of factors, but the one thing they're really looking at is whether Congress passes a new stimulus package. They say essentially if Americans have more money in their wallets, they're able to pay off bills and ultimately fend off lenders. That would slow down the number of repos we see. Put it off for a little while, we'd eventually see that uptick, but it may not be until a few months down the road.
Yeah, and you know that aid that extends well beyond car ownership. It gets me thinking about people who may not be worried about losing their vehicle, but have other debts that have been forgiven temporarily or and are about to come due. What's the word for people out there right now worrying about that end line?
You're exactly right. This doesn't necessarily exclusively apply to autos and vehicle loans. You know, early on in the pandemic, there was great leniency for consumers. A lot of protections were put into place. Now we're beginning to see those expire, to run out. And over the course of the next few months, we'll begin to really see the impact on consumers who have to pay those bills. And a lot of times they just don't have the money to do so.
All right. Kyle Aboshi, thank you.
All right, let's turn to some politics and get a check on voter turnout per the Oregon Secretary of State's office. 1 million plus voters have already turned in their ballots. That's a little bit more than 40%, with 8 days still to go until the election. And tonight we want to do a quick highlight on Curry County because they're the only county so far to cross that 50% threshold of turnout with 9,382 ballots returned. Great job, Curry County. Getting it done. Heading north to Washington, more than 2 million people have already cast their ballots there, nearly 42% of the voters in that state. And a special shout out to the 2,973 people in Perry County who've turned in their ballots. That's almost 58% of registered voters there. Now, a couple of important election deadlines that you should know. First, we're going to talk about Oregon. See, tomorrow is the last day that you can safely mail your ballot through the post office. After tomorrow, please, if you're going, you have to drop this off in a drop box, an official drop box location. Remember, no postage is required this year if you do get it in the mail today or tomorrow. And Washington voters, listen up to this, because today, right now, this is the last day that you can register to vote online or by mail. You can still register to vote all the way up until Election Day, but you'd have to do it in person if you miss the deadline today. Now, one of the best parts of this election is how many people have become so interested and educated about the voting process. And we know that because we've been getting so many questions from all of you at home. Here's Kristen Severance now with some more answers.
Okay, let's answer some questions. Our first one says, what if my signature changed over the years and doesn't match the one on my ballot? A viewer had reached out to us because she had a stroke and was concerned about her signature matching. So we contacted the Secretary of State's office. They told us it's already too late to fill out a new registration card with your current signature. So at this point, it's probably best to contact your local county elections office directly. Now, they said if the signature does not match, the voter voter will be contacted and will be able to remedy the situation, but must do so within 14 days after the election. If you're aware of any mistake or inconsistency relating to your ballot, again, you want to contact your local county elections office as soon as possible. All right, our next Hey Dan question, this one: do I have to vote in every race in order for my ballot to be accepted? Okay, the answer here is nope. You do not have to vote in every single race in order for your vote to count. And lastly, another Hey Dan question that we've gotten a lot of emails about, what happens or why did I receive 2 ballots? Well, people may receive 2 ballots if they change their voter registration information close to the time that ballots were sent out. Maybe you moved and updated your address or changed your party affiliation in the month prior to ballots being sent out. Director of Elections in Multnomah County, Tim Scott, said vote using the ballot with the correct information.
Because there's only one ballot at any time that's active and the other one is inactive and can't be voted.
Voting twice is a felony, and you should shred the other ballot and contact your county election office with any other questions. Do you have a question related to voting, your ballot, the election? Let us know. Use that hashtag HeyDan.
We got a strong reaction to Friday's show where we were taking a look at political ads. We read this email from a viewer, Ray Stotch. He said, "Hey Dan, with all the political ads now on TV, are these ads fact-checked before airing?" So we sort of answered the question on Friday, but we want to take a deeper look tonight into what politicians are allowed to say to each other on our airwaves. Whatever you want to call it.
Carolyn Long acts concerned.
Mudslinging.
Herrera butlers with Trump.
A war of words.
Long's lined her pockets with $200 grand in investments.
The battle over our airwaves definitely isn't pretty.
Threatening tax hikes on the middle class.
But are all these ads true? A lot of you want to know whether truth in advertising laws apply to political ads. And we get our answer from the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal Communications Commission, and Dr. William Lee from the University of Georgia. The FTC says the truth in advertising law requires commercial ads be truthful, not misleading, and when appropriate, backed by scientific evidence. The federal law is in place to protect consumers, but those rules do not extend to political ads.
Truth in advertising laws do not apply to political advertisements. The Supreme Court has distinguished commercial speech, that is, speech about goods and services, from political speech.
UGA's Dr. Lee says that's because most of what you hear in these ads is opinion or hyperbole, so it comes down to the First Amendment.
Any effort to regulate political advertising would run up against a very strong First Amendment tradition where the Supreme Court simply believes that debate on public issues and public people should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open.
In fact, FCC laws prohibit TV stations from refusing or censoring political ads from any legally qualified candidate. Lee says if a candidate doesn't like the way he or she is portrayed in an ad, they can respond with an ad of their own. So, short answer, truth in advertising laws do not apply to political advertisements, which are pretty safely covered by free speech, with a few exceptions.
A false factual statement could be subject to defamation. But again, the Supreme Court basically believes that the remedy for false statements in political speech is more speech.
2 years ago, we learned Portland police disproportionately arrest people who are homeless. Why? Not much has changed since then. And a viewer wanted to know more about one of the most dramatic murder cases in Oregon's history. And we found a lot more in the KGW vault.
I personally could never see myself taking a human life.
When the story continues. Welcome back to The Story. Thanks for taking the time to write in using that hashtag HeyDan or emailing us at thestory@kgw.com. You might have noticed here on The Story, if you've watched some of our reporting, that we love data and we love reporting based on data because in these insane times, clarity and hard truths help us to make sense of very complicated moments in history. It's pretty clear, I think, that the talented team of journalists over at the Oregonian feel the same way. See, for the past 3 years in a row, reporters there have dug into arrest records in Portland and found homeless people are arrested and jailed way more often than people with homes. Now, the two people fighting to be Portland's next mayor are arguing over what to do about it. Here's Maggie Vespa.
Most people homeless in Portland have stories about run-ins with police. Some involve actual crimes, like theft. but not all of them.
And other people call the cops and, like on you for no reason at all. This one person called the police on and said that I was smoking weed, and I hadn't even lit up a cigarette,
Now a new report shows the impact those run-ins are having on a mass scale. According to the last official count conducted in 2019, people living on the streets of Multnomah County represent less than 1% of the overall population. But according to the Oregonian, in 2019, people living on the streets made up more than 50% of arrests and 40% of jail bookings for the entire year. The newspaper's analysis also showed among people arrested once in the last 3 years, those with homes were 30% less likely to be arrested again later on.
The data speaks for itself.
Advocates and officials agree the cycle makes our housing crisis harder to solve. Monday morning, Portland's mayor said the crux of the solution is more affordable housing. He called for government agencies across the metro area to consider, quote, a moonshot.
What would it take for us in partnership with the private sector to build 5,000 units of low-income housing in this community in 3 years? And to get there, in other words, what rules, what regulations, what fees, what impediments could we just flat out eliminate?
The mayor admitted such a feat would drastically ramp up existing efforts to get people housed. But he argued his administration has made strides, placing 6,000 people into permanent housing last year, a record high. Still, his opponent in next week's election isn't sold.
Why he's waiting until 2 weeks before his reelection to talk about this when he's been the mayor since 2016 should be a huge red flag for voters.
In an open letter to the mayor, candidate Sarah Iannarone called for the incumbent to redirect millions of dollars from the Portland Police Bureau toward housing. This after council cut $15 million from the Bureau's budget this summer. Iannarone argues Portlanders would rather see their money go toward getting people off the streets than policing, especially given this new arrest data.
He hasn't taken this seriously as he should have until now. We should have had a strategy like this in place years ago.
The mayor argues any further cuts to the police bureau's budget would impact public safety, and this year is already setting a record for shootings. He's calling on the private sector for help building new housing as fast as possible, especially as winter approaches, putting those sleeping on our streets at greater risk. Maggie Vespa, KGW News.
A viewer named Lorna had a request from the KGW Vault. She wrote us in and said, I've been listening to a podcast about the murder of Michael Franke in the 80s, and they say they have a lot of interviews from KGW. Can you check the vault for me? We would love to. For some of our new or younger viewers, this story, I think, does need a little bit of context. In 1990, a man named Frank Gable was arrested, accused of murdering Oregon's chief of prisons, Michael Franke. Gable was convicted. He was sentenced to life in prison. Well, just last year, almost 30 years after he was sentenced, he was set free because of some new evidence that came to light. See, it turns out someone else actually confessed to the crime. KGW interviewed Gable in 1990 before he was arrested for murder. He happened to be in prison already at the time for a different crime, but even then, he said that he didn't kill Franke, but suspected why people started to think that he did. Here's some of that interview from the KGW Vault.
I personally could never see myself taking a human life because
Frank Gable has found himself a key figure in the Michael Franke murder investigation. He says he didn't do it. He is currently serving a year sentence in the Coos County Jail for assaulting his wife, but others say he's done much worse than beat his wife. Mike Kierans, a convict from the Idaho State Penitentiary, claims Frank Gable told him he killed Franke during a car burglary. Gable says that's a lie, that there's only one reason why other inmates keep pointing to him.
I believe it's because a lot of the people like Kearns and several other inmates are jumping on the bandwagon thinking, well, we can get our charges dropped, point the finger at Gable, we'll get our charges dropped, so my name keeps coming up. I've been so scared, each day you don't know if you're getting out in 52 days or if you're going to get put to death penalty for a crime you didn't commit. So yeah, I'm scared, more scared than I've ever been in my life.
So we obviously kind of edited that down a little bit, but there's a lot more in this story right now on the KGW YouTube channel you can check out. And we also think that podcast Lorna mentioned is worth your time. It's called Murder in Oregon. It came out last year. KGW did play a pretty big role in it by sharing some of our footage. There are 12 episodes starting with that 1989 murder and following the next 30 years of that case. It's a great listen if you like the true crime sort of thing, and you can find it right now in Apple Podcasts. Now, if you got an idea for something that we should look into in the KGW Vault, let us know. Grab your phone, use that hashtag HeyDan, or you can email us at thestory@kgw.com, or find me on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Stop by the station, yell through the glass, I'm here. Now's a good time to hit me up. We're going to be reading some comments right after the break when we finish the story. Next. All right, hey, I know I always come across as the consummate professional and a Northwest native, but believe it or not, I'm pretty new around here. And when a big work anniversary comes up, I like to take a moment and remark on it. Today marks 2 years since one of my most formative moments on the KGW airwaves, and I think it's only going to make sense to share it with you again here tonight, because I feel like it's a really good precursor for how this year so far has gone. Take a look.
We have 2-year-old twins in the studio this morning. We also have their parents. We have Dan Haggerty and Kristen Severance. They are the newest members of our KGW News team. I've got to talk over the screaming twins.
How has it been being parents of 2-year-old twins? Dare I ask? It is, isn't it, that are good for twins?
Yes! You're reminding me of my own kids when they were 2 years old, and they did that all the time, and I know there's no stopping it. You can't be controlled. I'm sorry. I have no advice.
Let's get Kristen
I've been
a bottle
through
of
it,
wine.
and I can't tell you what to do.
Right about then, I hit the ejector seat, and we left. 2-year-old clip. Do you hear my son reach that next octave? He's going to be a singer, opera maybe. Hey, let's read some comments tonight. I'm going to go rapid fire through these Twitter comments I got using Hey Dan from a guy named Steele. How do you know what signature is on file for voting? Is there a way to look that up? Well, you could reach out to the county elections office and see what it is through them. Go down there and check it out. He said, I registered to vote through the DMV. Is it the same signature that is on my license? Yes. So if you did register through the DMV, look on your license, take a look at that signature. If that's the one you use, you're in the clear. Even if your signature doesn't match, the elections office will reach out to you, and you have 14 days to make good. So it's not the end of the world if you did happen to mess up your signature when you vote. You have an opportunity to make amends. And then he also asked, how do I get a I voted sticker? I know, that's the one thing about mailing in. You don't get that sticker to wear proudly around for the rest of the day, but they do have a digital sticker on the Secretary of State's website, so you can hop on there, make it your profile picture, share it online, that kind of stuff, or I don't know, print it out, pin it to your jacket. I don't have a lot of great ideas. Hopefully I'll have some better ones for tomorrow's show. But tonight, that's it. That's the story. I'll see you back here later.